reaction you just got. I imagine that's what happens to you everywhere. Like you walk into Starbucks?
In the street, I've never been in a Starbucks.
Really?
I have to put together how much coffee I drink. I get nervous. I get really agitated. No, I do. Eventually, I got in there, but no. It's, yeah. I have that in my house every morning. I come downstairs to have breakfast. There's people lined up applauding.
Well, again,
It's a joke.
Thank you so much for being here. I want to say congratulations on a beautiful movie, and I also want to say thank you, because it feels like this film is long overdue. Hollywood has not always been so collaborative with Indigenous people in telling their stories, and I know it's based on David Grann's excellent book.
Yes.
But you take a very different approach in that it's less about the FBI and more about the personal effects this story had on people. Can you talk about that choice?
Well, I mean, the timing of the release of the film is just coincidental. I mean, it's not, we didn't plan it for this time. But I was affected by the story because I first had had an experience with Native Americans in Dakota on Pine Ridge, the reservation, in 1974. And I was too young, I didn't quite understand. I was kind of traumatized by what I saw. And for the years, it stuck with me, because I'm an old, I saw movies. I was born in 42, so in the 40s and 50s, I saw a lot of Westerns, and I liked them. And a kid with asthma, and I couldn't run around, I couldn't go near animals. So, the outdoors for me was Western. And so I thought, as a child, everything had been settled and everybody's fine. And when I got to the reservation, I saw that's not the case. And it's taken me years to think about it and what we are and who we are as a country, and how we should, we should face our mistakes, mistakes, successes, understand the culture that we've created, this great experiment of America, the whole idea of all these different cultures together. The problem is you have to respect and have dignity for each other's culture. That's the key. And I think for you, I hope, I don't want to talk too long because the film is of a rather substantial length. I want to try something for you guys. Show it on a big screen, for God's sakes. And see it here and immerse yourself in it if you can. I immerse myself in that world in Oklahoma. I'd never been in a place like that. I come from downtown New York, tenements, mean streets. So when I got there were prairies, with wild horses in the prairies. It was wild. And so I immersed myself in that life and with the people, and it changed me, and it changed the way the film was going to be made from the book. The book has the Bureau of Investigation at that time. It wasn't called the FBI.
BOI, the BOI?
Yeah, they were coming in, sent in by Edgar Hoover, who at that time wasn't the Edgar Hoover who we all know now, but was just beginning. He's sending these guys, these old Texas Rangers and stuff, to find out what the hell was going on down in Pawhuska and the Osage Nation, because a lot of people were dying, and then there was, I don't want to get into it, we haven't seen the film yet, but the point is that, according to the book by David Grann, I guess I can say this without spoiling it for you, when I kept reading it and writing the script with Eric Roth, and we kept trying, everything was seen from the point of view of the Bureau guys coming in and trying to untie this Gordian knot, so to speak, and see who was doing what to whom, and who were the bad guys, who did it, basically. And I always felt, after a while, I said, it wasn't a matter of who did it, it's a matter of who didn't. And I wanted to make a movie that I hope, if you give yourself to it, you get a sense of a quiet, kind of insidious, sinister, crawling, creeping, in a sense, horror, in a way. And also how regular people could get involved with it.
Yeah.
How after a certain point in time, your family, you got the Native Americans, the Osage didn't really understand the use of money the way we do, the European Americans. So, you know, if I don't want to give it away, but if a glass of water costs $1, they pay for it, and then, you know, next week you charge them $2, they pay for it. So you're saying, you know, my wife is sick, I got my problems. What if I charge them $10 for the water? I bet you they'll pay for it, and they do. 2 weeks later you charge 20, and they do. And it's a different way of thinking. It was never about taking for them. It was always about giving, in a way. It's a very different culture. And the spirituality in that culture, we could learn a lot from the spirituality of the indigenous cultures of all the lands. It's not something to completely suppress and kill, throw away, genocide. And so I got into that. And so I said, why do it from the outside in? Why don't we tell the story from the ground level? And I found out through the Osage that the character played by Leo and the character played by Lily Gladstone, you'll see, they marry, etc. They really were in love.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say more because it's about complicity, it's about weakness, it's about love and trust for everybody, and then betrayal, and how that reflects on who we are. And also, I don't know, would I have been strong enough to stand up against it?
Yeah.
Especially in a place that was kind of lawless in a way. You know, I mean, I'm out there with those prairies, and you know, your next neighbor is 100 miles away. It's not, it's not the way it is in a city. And so you think differently. But I felt very strongly for the Osage in this picture. And I also, what's interesting in this story is that the European American, played by De Niro and Leo and all, they really did like them.
Yeah, yeah.
They were all friends, by the way.
That's the strangest thing.
That's the interesting thing in this story. Everybody were friends. I mean, there were some personal things here and there, but they were friends.
I want to give you some credit, though, because my understanding is that you had already written a script, and you were in pre-production on a movie when you decided it was time to, you know, you wanted to
That's
tell
when I couldn't do it. I said, I've seen this picture. I said, it's a police procedural Western. And the Tom White character that Leo was going to play, I've seen it. I've seen it with Henry Fonda, My Darling Clementine, played by her, and the best of Clint Eastwood. I said, what would I tell him to do? Nothing, because it's already been done. And so we spoke to the Osage. They spoke to us further, and we got to know Molly a little bit, Lily, and we realized that maybe we should tell the love story.
Wow.
Because the love story is like the microcosm of the macrocosm of the whole situation. And things occur that also the way life is. I don't like to necessarily, I was experimenting with the film in that I don't necessarily like to tie things up, because we never know. We don't know how many died. We don't know really who did what. I mean, in this story, there are some specific people, but it just, you know, things were just hidden.
I want to talk about actually your work with the Osage people, because you involve tons of consultants and descendants of survivors. You say you have to, but not all filmmakers would.
Oh no, I don't know why they wouldn't, because, I mean, how am I going to tell a person, you stand there and you wear that? I don't know what, I mean, they have to tell me what they wear, and then I have to also trust them that they're not putting on their best behavior. You know, like, well, this is what I wear. And so, no, what do you wear during the day? You know, what do you wear? You know what I'm saying? And so what really happened is that we got pretty close with them.
Yeah.
And we had these terrific, they became consultants, along with Jackie West, who did costumes. She did the costumes for The Revenant. Jack Fisk, the great production designer, Terry Malick's films, and all these great films he made over the years. And Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood. You know, so they got into the actual culture, and I said, I'd just like to know, even if it's real, like that's what they actually do, can I then take, with their permission, a little poetic license here, a little poetic license there, and play with it in a way that still has an authenticity.
Yes.
And the only way I could do that was involve all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, not only that, but in front of the camera.
Yes.
They're all acting the picture. And you'll see certain scenes, one particular scene, it's not even an improvisation, it's the guy just started talking and I just ran the camera. I just ran it. Yeah.
I actually want to ask about the improvisation because I wasn't aware that Leonardo DiCaprio apparently loves to improvise.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently Robert De Niro does not love to improvise.
Well, De Niro too, but De Niro's character is rather different. He's the old grand uncle, call me king, you know. It's a real guy, William Hale, who was known as the king of the Osage Hills. You know, Leo's character, improvisation, you'll see between, I think you could feel it between him and Lily.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also him and a guy named Ramsey, too. There's a couple of other moments there. But between Lily Gladstone and Leo, especially in the scene where they're in a car and he's a taxi driver and he's teasing her and she teases him, you could see the relationship right there as actors really trusting each other and loving each other as actors, you know, and that's how we kept building. And actually, in order to get it balanced, it's a tricky project. In order to get it all balanced with all the stories what Bill Hale was doing and what his minions were doing, all the people who were working for him, what was happening in the town, the KKK, the Masons, all of that stuff, the doctors, all of that I had to keep shuffling and working on the script as we shot the picture. And so this is how I fashioned it. I tried something different. And, you know, I just tried it.
You know, so much has been made of Lily Gladstone's amazing performance, and I'm curious how you sort of utilized her perspective as an Indigenous actress to build this character together, because it feels like a collaboration.
She's a Blackfoot, and when I first met her on Zoom, and because it was right before, then I was going to meet her in person, but then the pandemic hit. And for that whole year of the pandemic, this was on my head, and I was working on the script and working on it. But what I learned from her, aside from the fact that I saw her in this movie, Certain Women, by Kelly Reichardt, it's really all in her face. It's in her eyes, you know? And the emotion, the psychology is all there. You can see it happening. She doesn't have to telegraph anything. And she's got a strength. She also has an activist strength.
Yeah.
That you don't see in the movie, but you could feel it. In other words, even if she ever felt anything that was slightly off or indigenous, she would tell me, or she would let us know, you know, and say, I don't think this doesn't seem this. Or, for example, her playing around with the Osage language. You got to understand, the Osage language is gone. They stamped everything out, and they're beginning to bring it back. And there were teachers there. So when you hear them speaking Osage, not only Lily and her sisters, but Leo, his character, the actual man he played, Ernest, did speak Osage. And even Bob De Niro, Bob really fell in love with the language, and he wanted to do more scenes in Osage. He said, no, we can't. How'd you do it? No, we can't. But in any event, she kept us on that tightrope that way, along with Julie O'Keefe and Chad Renfro, and there were so many others. Really, people that we all sort of, the key was when I got to meet them, naturally, you know, they look at you askance because,
Sure.
you know, we are who we are. And it took about a couple of meetings before they could start to begin the possibility of trusting you. At least to give them a fair shake and not just make them victims, but also not to make a hagiography, oh, they're all so great. No, they're people, they're human beings, they have their own problems, you know.
I suspect we have a lot of actors here tonight, and I think what everyone would love to know is if they're lucky enough to work with you or to audition or Zoom with you, how do you describe what you're looking for? Because it's so nebulous.
Well, I mean, it really depends on the role in the film. In some cases, there's in the case of An Irishman, for example, I mean, there's a naturalness that people, ideally, if they feel comfortable in that world, or they could, if something happens on set, something falls, they can just go with it, you know, rather than, what I mean is, they're confident in that world that the film is depicting, that's all. And that helps a lot. Now, there are some wonderful great actors who can make themselves confident in that world. It's a different kind of film, and I've done that, too. You know, I've done that. Shut up. Which one?
I don't know, I actually can't make it out. Oh, Ray.
Oh, Ray, yeah, for example, Ray, the great Ray. Oh, God. Ray gone, Paul Sorvino, my God. Yeah, from Goodfellas. Ray, perfect. He was our Virgil. Took us all the way down to, through Dante. You know, he took us all the way down to the circles of hell. And what he had to do in there. And it's a very interesting thing because all the flashy parts, you know, Joe Pesci was amazing, and Bob was great, and Lorraine, everything. He's the guy who has to hold it all together. But of course, the people who get the, you know, the actors who are playing the stronger part, the flashier parts, I should say, they get more attention. They get more attention. But if you watch the picture, watch him. It all comes together when he's trying to stir the sauce.
I can't take my eyes off him except for when your mother is on screen because then I'm watching her.
Well, my mother, it was an improv. The whole thing was an improv.
That's amazing.
Her and Joe, well, you know, it was like basically Joe is not like the thing with my mother was that if Robert De Niro was not Robert De Niro, it was Bobby.
Yeah.
My son's friend. And Joe was Joey was my son's friend. So she sat down and talked to their friends. And I said, that's great though. We had 2 cameras and we ran it.
That's amazing. How do you work with so many different actors, and I'm sure they have different styles, and you know, some like to improv, some don't. How do you get them all on the same page and like make sure everyone's needs are being
Again, it depends on the material. Like in a case like The Aviators, John Logan's script was very precise. Very precise. There was very little of what you would call of the moment improvisation. There wasn't much room for that. And so it had to be rhythm, and it had to be studying the rhythm of the way people spoke in the 30s too. So we looked at a lot of films in the early 30s. And you go, like even His Girl Friday, Howard Hawks, talking very fast, Babyface, you know, all these films, the pre-code films. And so we picked up from them a sense of the rhythm of that time. Lee Tracy, who used to be this great actor at the time, always played, you know, fast-talking journalists, you know, newspaper guy. You know,
with the press in their
with
hats.
the crack in the air. So, I mean, this sort of thing, and we played with that. In Shutter Island, I showed Leo Out of the Past, a Jacques Tourneur film. And he looked afterwards, he said, that's the coolest film I've ever seen. I said, well, it's Mitchum. It's Mitchum and Jane Greer, the 2 of them together. It's like a dream. And I said, that's the way I want Shutter to be. And it was Mark Ruffalo too. And there's something about the way Mitchum moves in the picture. Then I showed him also Laura. I like the way Dana Andrews walks in the room. He's a cop, right? He's got his hat on. And if you watch his eyes, I would think, and I've seen it a few times, I come from the other side of that world, not the policeman side. So, not that I'm a gangster, I'm saying I was around that sort of thing. And I noticed the difference with policemen. They walk in a room, and what I noticed is particularly in that movie, and in reality too, when I was doing Departing, is that they look at everything. They look around. You could be talking to him, but he's looking around. He's checking out everything. Who? Where's the window? Where's the door? Who's so and so? Look at his shoes. Look at our shoes. Oh, interesting. I mean, and we use that as an example of how to play with the character that he played in Shutter. But if you give me Hugo and you give me Sir Ben Kingsley, it's a little different. Then he always says, "I'm a slave to the script, you know, to the text."
Yes.
He knows those words and he stays with those words. And I have to find another way of dealing with that. I had him, Daniel Day-Lewis, for example, on Age of Innocence. Although in Gangs of New York, Daniel was able to write some of his own stuff or improvise every now and then something outrageous, like tapping his eye with
the bunny, right? Yeah. Doesn't he improvise the bunny speech?
Yeah, he improvised, yeah, the bunny speech where he said they killed this poor little bunny. Yeah. And with that kind of thing, you just sit there and I'm the audience. But you have to create the atmosphere to let certain people who can do that feel free enough to do it. You don't have to use all of it, you know? But you gotta create that atmosphere. It's very difficult sometimes under the pressure of shooting on schedule, or I should say, you're supposed to be on schedule, there's money going down, people are freaking out, and you know, he or she wants to take a little time and improvise sometimes. I mean, Bob in De Niro in You're Talking to Me was an improvisation we did in the last week of the shooting of Taxi Driver. We were 5 days over, the studio wanted to kill us, and I mean it. I mean, I'm coming down there, at one point, they just took the camera out of Mike Chaplin's hand, and we were mad. And it was, you know, the tension of that film is real.
Yeah.
It was all of us were feeling that, and it was a crazy summer in New York. You know, it was violent. And Bob, I said, we do the scene in the mirror. You have to say something. What can I say? So he called Schrader and said, I don't know. So we were talking about it, and then he started in. I was at his feet. And we were shooting in a building on Columbus Avenue, which was about to be taken down, a condemned building. And you hear the soundtrack outside, you hear bongo drums across the street and everything. And bottom line, he got into the whole thing. Who are you talking to? You're talking to me, you're talking to me. And he went into the whole thing. And we had 2 takes like that, and my AD was banging on the door. And I finally go to the door, and he goes, we gotta get out of here. You're over, we gotta get this goddamn day shot. I said, no, 20 minutes more. This is really good, believe me. And so it's that, once we saw that happening, you go with that. And by the way, it was only the second time I worked with Bob.
That's right.
So I saw this guy could take it. You know, he could take it somewhere else, you know. But there are other people who are very strict, like in a case of the Age of Innocence, or the John Logan script in The Aviator, or working with Sir Ben. You know, I appreciate it because they're on. They know it. They know it. And by the way, he may be sticking to the words on the page, but he'll give you a different interpretation each time. And it's so subtle. I can't figure it out. It gets me.
You obviously have the most amazing track record with films, and you're always innovating and finding new ways to tell stories. Are you still learning new things as a director? Did you learn something new on this film?
You don't go in to learn. What I'm trying to do is, how should I say, want to make the film. What I mean is really want to do that shot. Really want to deal with that particular actor in this scene. Really want to have this line of dialogue. And what happens is that, because if I feel I don't, it means, in a flip way, I could say I'm getting bored. If I'm getting bored, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And that's why they say, well, you know, be a director, you need a lot of energy. Yeah, you do. Because you're excited all the time, you know. Yeah, you may take a nap these days every now and then, but you know, they pull you back out of the trailer and they throw you back in. But I'm telling you, it really has to be something special. And I feel that there might be a new way of dealing now that we have, you can watch 5.5 hours at home on a series. Maybe you can watch 3 hours in a theater, or 3+, okay. All right. I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. I don't mean to be, it just felt right the way the movie is now. I can't tell you. It's like a bolero that starts kind of slow, winding, and then gets a little tighter and tighter. Before you know it, it's like a python that's just got you.
Yeah.
That's the way I felt when we were doing it, when we finally, Thelma and I finally put it together, you know.
I'll tell you, when I saw this movie, I went in, I brought compression socks and a jacket that could double as a blanket, and I was like, I needed to know where the bathroom was, and I didn't move once.
Thank you.
No,
Wow.
Thank you.
Oh my God. No, I know. I know, because you tell me every single morning, you're going to see this film, and how long is it, I said. Because I had to know, I mean, so it's a bathroom, you know, you have to go to the bathroom and stuff like that. So I said, okay, now I'm going to make sure that I can spend the time to watch the picture properly. But I do hope that movies could come back this way that are not necessarily blockbusters, which you can have a lot of fun with, you know, but that in a sense, if you could give it the 3 hours plus, the way you would go if you go to a theater, and there are actors on the stage, and the play is a lengthy play, you know, and you get into that. There was no difference, really, years ago. Now there seems to be, and I hope that maybe pictures like this could be made, maybe differently, of course, maybe shorter, I don't know, maybe even longer.
It earns every second of its length.
All right.
I want to thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for coming out
everybody.
this week. Thank you for being here.